We wanted to try and come up with 3 key takeaways for you guys, and this is what the panel came up with, was be proactive. Plan ahead to build a patient-centered practice. Successful practices need to be nurtured. Making an investment in your patients takes time and hard work. Embrace that process. Dive in, figure out what patient-centered care means to you, and learn how to create that experience. I've been reading your fantastic business portfolios, because that's what I do with my spare time. And, you know, it was amazing to me. Some of you wrote things like, you know, my patients came in and then some of them stopped coming in. And my thing in my head was, did you ask why? Did you call them? Did you figure it out? Did you know, what did you do to help decide why these patients stopped coming in? And you'd be amazed as you know, just a quick phone call to ask for advice like that or insight like that can really help change how what you think you're doing and your patient's thinking something else. It helps with that perception. Ask for advice. We have some amazing clinicians here, amazing chiropractors. We have chiropractors out in the field, and you'll find that most chiropractors are very generous with their time and expertise. You know, I know, please don't flood my inbox, but certainly I'm here for you guys as well, and a lot of new grads contact me. I know these guys have mentored a lot of people as well, and certainly you can contact the OCA. The association is working all the time to create tools that will help make your practices successful. As I'd mentioned earlier, we've started a mentorship program because we realized how important mentorship is for your development and your success. Second key takeaway, develop trust. Listen to and integrate patient feedback. Again, building those strong relationships with your patient. Trustworthiness is the #1 attribute you develop with your patients, and it helps increase your credibility. As you become able to anticipate their needs and tailor your care for them, you will be able to improve their overall health and bring greater credibility and professionalism to your practice and then ultimately to the profession. Get connected. That was another big one. Develop strong relationships with other professionals, massage therapists, MDs, physiotherapists, and understand how you can work together, and that is the key to great patient care. This also leads to a greater number of referrals and increased trust with your patients. I have to say that in my practice, I have 2 physiotherapists and an athletic therapist, and they have probably been my greatest referral source. And one of the things that I did early on, and the panelists brought that up, was sometimes I would do assessments with the physio. So, or I would be doing an assessment and I would pull the physio in and say, can you give me your opinion on this? And patients really like that. Now they've got 2 healthcare professionals working together. And it's okay not to know and ask the other professional for help. Learning is lifelong. The more you learn from other professionals and the more they learn from you, the easier the collaboration. Not only will this benefit you as a chiropractor, but it increases the reputation of all chiropractors. And it's really key in helping us build the credibility of our profession. So I'd like to thank you to the panelists. We're now going to turn our visions onto you guys. It's your turn to ask questions. As I mentioned earlier, you can ask questions in 2 ways. You can raise your hand or write down a question on the paper you found on your chair, and you can pass it down to Natalie right here in the front, who'll bring it forward. Questions? Yes, Chelsea.
How did you guys actually make your connections with different sports teams? Because all of you said that you guys have different athletes that you guys have worked with, so I'm just wondering how you guys specifically friends in that area.
I'll tell you an interesting story. And
Oh, so the question is, how did you make your connections with the various sports teams? So all the panelists said they've worked with a lot of sports teams. How do they actually make those connections?
so I'll answer that question with a story. About 2.5 years ago or so. By the way, I'm a diehard Leaf fan. I know they're not doing too well. I'm a diehard Leaf fan. One of the happiest days of my of practice. I walked into my clinic one day. My clinic is essentially like next door neighbors with the ACC. I walked in one day and there was a Toronto Maple Leaf just sitting in my waiting room. And yeah, I'm telling you. And he wasn't even here to see me. But of course, delving into what we were just talking about, I connected, I mingled. Hey, how are you? Welcome to the clinic. Nice to meet you. Welcome. We're here to help. It was before the season began.
Can I have your autograph?
I tried to act like he asked me, oh, what do you do here? I told him, he's like, oh, great. Can I see you? I'm like, oh, yeah, absolutely. He came and saw me. He was happy. He ended up coming a few times. He ended up telling some of his other teammates. And things just kind of spiral from there. It's all about who you know. Sometimes you get one chance to make an impression. You got to make it. Sometimes even talking to other chiropractors who treat in specific fields, they'll be able to give you referrals. So I guess for me, it was more of a fortunate thing. The pharmacy I work with right now, they also, believe it or not, sometimes it's as simple as making a phone call. They called the Toronto Blue Jays up, they called the Toronto Raptors up, and the Leafs. And they said, oh, can we be a exclusive pharmacy? They're like, oh yeah, we've been looking for somebody, and players are coming in all the time. Just very simple things. Sometimes you don't get if you don't ask. It's hilarious, I know.
For me, it was the same sort of issue. In terms of the LPGA players that I covered an actual tournament of that, and that was through a connection when I was practicing in the U.S., through connections of patients that then knew what we did and needed us to help cover the event. From the CFL players that I've treated here, they were based on referrals of other people sending them in to me, and they preferred to drive in to see me in Burlington as opposed to going to their therapist that they have for their team. So it's really just about building your confidence in what you do, building your reputation, and it's really about just referred in my case as well, in all of the professional athletes, figure skaters, et cetera.
So I would basically say all of that is completely true. And the only other thing too that I would say is important is it's good to be visible. Try to get yourself a little bit more, visibility. I mean, if someone's trying to look for you and they can't find you on Google, that's a bit of a difficult choice in trying to come to you. I mean, and the other thing is too, someone might refer someone to you, but again, if they Google you and you're not present, you're not visible, and they have no idea who you are, you don't even have a LinkedIn profile, red flags are going to go up, and not necessarily even with sports teams and athletes, but just in general, if someone's trying to connect with you as an expert in something and they can't find anything about you online and you're nowhere to be found, there is a bit of that notoriety that comes from being present on different platforms. So I think that's another key thing.
Yeah, social media is so key these days in getting your name out there. And even within social media now, there's a lot of competition, right? So it's all finding out how you make yourself unique and different. Questions? Yes, sir.
You know what, and I question that myself as well, because sometimes, I have a patient actually right now that she came to me when I first actually met this one patient. She was one of those perfect examples. She had 10 months of this odd sort of like rib pain that, she was seeing everyone under the sun for, had, gallbladder testing done. She had, she had seen neurologists, she had seen a pain specialist, she'd seen everybody. And at this point, she was seeing our doctor for a prescription refill on her narcotics. And, at that time, the doctor just took a chance and said, has anyone actually checked you for a physical issue, an MSK issue? And so, she just was like, what, can you just check her out? And I said, okay, I found a couple of MSK findings, and so I decided to treat her. And after 10 months, she told me that in that one visit, her pain went from being a 10 or a 12 out of 10 to being a 0 out of 10. And I thought to myself, I'm like, what exactly did I do? And honestly, till this day, it's funny because she actually ended up, she has a lot of like yellow flag issues. It's a very complex patient. And anyways, long story short, she actually had to leave the city, and she had left for personal issues, and her care had been stopped. And instead of reaching out to me to help her find someone in the area she was living, she decided to go out and looked up someone who had a very similar bio to me. And she saw this chiropractor about 5 or 6 times, and she ended up sending me a 4-page email basically saying how she completely, her issue was completely regressed. She's in so much pain, and she is now going to take the GO train and, figure out a way to come see me. And I saw her yesterday, and I asked her, I'm like, what's so different? She's like, I don't know, Sapna, you know what? I think it's just the fact that one, you get me, you care, and two, she said your hands are magic. And she's actually seen other chiropractors in my office. She's seen, and now she's seen this other chiropractor, and a lot of it was also the technique. She told me that no matter what, some of the other chiropractors that couldn't get her adjustments were because they don't have the strength I have. And I don't think it's a strength issue, because if you look at my size, I'm not necessarily that huge. But I think a lot of it is knowing how to leverage yourself in terms of your skill set and being good at what you do. So that is a strength of mine. Is SMT is. I guess I would say I'm good at it. So I think that was something that made myself sort of an asset to her. And so, and I think the other thing is really forming strong relationships, showing that you care. Because for a lot of these complex and chronic patients, they have so many issues. They have so many things going on. And a lot of the times the practitioners are only looking at things from a siloed approach. They're not taking a holistic, multi-level approach. They're not asking them, well, what did the other specialists say? Well, what's going on with this? What's going on in your diet? And take a full holistic approach and actually care and actually, go about being approachable with them too. I email these types of patients. I let them email me. I'll respond to them at 10 o'clock at night. If they send me a long-winded email, I'm not going to just ignore them until office hours the next day. So I think my answer is multiple, but I would say, may not necessarily be so simple as because of a specific type of treatment.
Thank you. Any more questions? Yes. All right. So what book have each of you read that has been most influential, contributing to your success? Great question. Kareem?
It's a great question.
Book?
Good question.
I'll be perfectly honest. It hasn't been one book. I actually gained a lot from CE courses. I love Dr. Spina's Functional Anatomy and Functional Range Release. I highly recommend it for everyone. That's amazing. At the same time, too, my clinicians were awesome. I'm still living off the stuff they taught me. Big ups to Padge over there. And keeping updated with the research. Dr. Sean Thistle has an amazing research review service. That's gold. So I don't think it came from a book, but it came from those resources.
Yeah, I'm going to say I don't have a lot of time to read actual textbooks, but I would say if I were to sort of look at things right now. So, I go through my phases. Sometimes I'm really into nutrition. So I was reading Brendan Brazier's, vegan book. I forgot, Thrive, I think is what it was called. And that was awesome for me at one point. And then, a few months ago, or actually maybe a year ago, I was really into Dr. Mark Hyman's functional medicine stuff with the Institute of Functional Medicine. I'm really big on functional medicine, and I think it ties in really well when you're working in a multidisciplinary setting. It's a perfect example that it's a great movement right now for a lot of different professionals, and it's something that I highly think is the new sort of face of personalized medicine. And so for me, that's been one of my mentors, as well as some of the teachings that I take from, because they look at healthcare not just from a symptomatic approach, they look at it from an upstream approach. So that's been something that's helped me from like a sports and rehab perspective. Gray Cook stuff is really amazing. I just bought one of his books. But also a lot of stuff online. I like a ton of people on Facebook, and I'm always looking at their posts and then, following another post. And then, I don't know, I feel like my reading is usually done online these days, but yeah.
I do read a lot. I just find that I choose to, besides reading during the day, all of our chiropractic things that I might read when I'm in my office, I do try to find that time to step away from that and maybe just to read outside books that are biographies or things that people are just trying to do to make themselves better or be more successful. And I think that's important to you as a chiropractor, is to be able to sort of step away from it as well and maybe just take more encouraging type novels or books or things like that. I'm reading Wild right now, which is about the girl that's hiked the Pacific Coast Trail. And at the beginning of the book, I thought, I'm done with chiropractic. I'm going to take 3 months off and hike the trail. And then I realized, well, I have kids and a family and a husband and I need to make money, so it's not logical. But finding books like that sort of encourage you to be, do something else, are just as important as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And also reading books, about money, business. Really, really good. Rules of Wealth by Richard Templar is really good. some of the books like about marketing. I thought Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Tipping Point, was really good at helping me understand the markets. Outliers is another great book. The Wealthy Barber, like getting out and not just about chiropractic, but about other things.
I follow a lot of online people too. Like Marie Forleo is huge on the whole landscape of, passion-driven businesses that actually make money and make a difference. So, finding leaders in that realm as well. There's also, Matthew Loop. Sometimes, the stuff on there is a bit questionable, but it's also helpful when it comes time to sort of social media aspects and just a lot of common sense things that, not necessarily are always constantly about clinical stuff, but things that can also inspire you.
Yep. There was a hand up there. Yes.
Based on your experience, this question for the panel, based on your experience, what do you feel was the most successful form of marketing between, I know you were talking about different strategies that you use to kind of reach out to people and network, but do you feel it was, say, your website that grabbed most of your patients, or was it like getting out and talking to them? Like, I know you're getting out and talking to doctors, but that's what
So what was your most successful form of marketing? So what was your most successful marketing strategy?
Yeah.
What would you recommend is the...
For me, and I talk to my associates that work with us, and we try to do this as a team, and we try to do it individually, but nothing beats you being in the sort of face of people who want to see you. So for example, I know it's a struggle, and my husband's a business finance major, and he always says to me, it's kind of getting out in the community and speaking to people is like the trickle that's coming in with patient referrals versus you want the Niagara Falls waterfall. But for me, just being in front of, I do a lot of guest speaking on running gait and shoes and running injuries and to the running room. And every single time I speak, I have 3 or 4 people within a week that come in as a patient, and then they might turn into physiotherapy patients or massage patients or something else. And because the patient wants to, if they want to be a patient with you, they want to hear you, they want to see you, they want to interact with you just as much as they want to see your face on social media. So I think it's important to be out there speaking for us personally.
Yeah, and as a new grad, I always thought, oh man, how do all these people get so many talks booked? Like, how do I get into that sort of space of giving a talk? Because, again, the visibility that you get from doing, being out in the community and doing talks is huge. And so one of the things that I actually did when I was a new grad was I started looking at all the intake forms of every patient that was coming in my door. And one of the companies was WSIB. And I thought, oh my God, like WSIB, like we're seeing all these patients. And so, what I started to do is I started to follow a trend. And until I found a specific person that actually worked in the ergonomics department in HR. So I thought, this is a really good opportunity. So I actually went around and made a pamphlet or like a folder of information with stats about, low back injuries and, the importance of different types of care and how our clinic was literally footsteps away. And so that little educational folder that I made for them actually turned into us starting our first talk. And the first talk was great. I got, 20 or 25 patients just from that one talk that I did. But the amazing thing from that was that it actually then made our whole clinic more visible, so where they were learning that, oh my God, you guys have medical doctors, you guys have physiotherapists, this is huge. So what ended up starting out as me just trying to figure out how to do a talk turned into not only being regularly reinvited year after year after year for multiple things, but now I would say, the vast majority of that company comes in to see our clinic's MDs and comes in to see us, but the extended referral relationship from that has become huge to not only myself but to the entire practice. And so when I was a new grad, I pretty much did that with 3 or 4 different companies, and from there it really helped kickstart a pretty good recurring rate of referrals.
Kareem?
Just adding to that, there's no doubt about it. We live in an internet world. You have to have a good patient-friendly website that is mobile-friendly. Nobody's going to search on desktops anymore. It's about tablets and iPhones and Androids. So make sure you have a good website, patient-friendly, mobile-friendly. The best form of marketing I found is things that are direct. Talking to someone directly. It actually starts, believe it or not, in the treatment room. Your patients are your best sources of referrals for sure. I have patients I've seen since from day one, essentially, till today. And those patients will bring their whole family and friends and colleagues, etc. So I would say things that are more direct rather than brochures or mail outs or things like that. Those tend to not work well. They're usually just junk mail and a waste of money.
And just back to the internal marketing point as well that Sapna is made. It's amazing when somebody comes into your practice, especially when you're in a multidisciplinary practice. So whether you own the practice and you have lots of disciplines working for you, or you're a new chiropractor going into another clinic with multiple disciplines, it's amazing a patient that might have come into the practice 6, 7, 8, 20 times, and they don't know that there's other disciplines within that practice. That is key as well, is just interdisciplinary marketing of each other and speaking about each other and posting something within the practice that there's physio and chiro and MD and massage and just making an awareness to that as well.
Great point.
I think we don't have time for one more question, unfortunately. We have to wrap up. I'd really like to thank our panelists for taking the time to join us today and share your stories. Yep. And our panelists are going to hang around for a bit, so please feel free to come up and chat with them. I also want to thank the OCA for helping put this event together. Just want you guys know, I say this all the time, the association is here for you. Make sure you get connected with them, and your association is going to be an invaluable resource for you over the course of your career. So we encourage you to look into the continuing education offerings of both the OCA and CMCC, and we thank you and we wish you all much, much success in the future. Thanks, guys.